Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday. Dave Revson and Rapheal Davis. Man, two good games in the Big Ten last night, decided by a total of 11 points. Lots to talk about.
It is tough to win on the road in the Big Ten, no matter how well you play, especially when you have to go out and play a team a second time. But this is what you love about college basketball, when games in February really matter before you even get to March.
Yeah, no doubt. 4 NCAA tournament quality teams playing last night, going head-to-head. The game in Bloomington is where we will start. That is our big story. Number 18, Indiana, taking down 24th-ranked Rutgers 66-60. It was a game the Hoosiers led virtually start to finish. We're up by as many as 14 in the first half. Trayce Jackson-Davis, another phenomenal game, 20 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists. He passed the 2,000-point mark for his career, the sixth Hoosier to do so. The win moves IU into a second-place tie with Rutgers in the conference standings. Let's dive into this one. Amazing individual moments and performances in this game. But to me, it comes down to, and we can get into all that stuff, but Mike Woodson was talking to us before the game. I had the pleasure of calling this one with Stephen Bardo and Andy Katz. And he was saying to us, in that first game against Rutgers, we were out-toughed. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone would dispute it. I actually watched the game back in preparation for doing this one. It was pretty obvious that they were. I don't think this was some sort of a radical take on his part. To me, the story of this game was that Indiana, certainly in the first half, kind of took the fight to Rutgers.
Yeah, in that first game, saying they got out-toughed is being nice. Yes. They just got straight up punked every which way you can be. And in this game, they took the fight right to Rutgers. They didn't wait to try and embrace the physicality of the game later during the game. They took it right to them. In that first matchup out of New Jersey, Indiana was out-rebounded by 14. Rutgers had 17 offensive rebounds. Rutgers was plus 10 in the paint. In this game, they just flipped it. Indiana won the rebound war. They took care of the basketball. They won the paint war. They had some offensive rebounds. And then they took 10 Rutgers turnovers and turned them into 17 points. And that's exactly what Rutgers like to do. So they just flipped the matchup.
The big thing that really stood out to me, and I think this was more so in the first half, was Rutgers just had trouble initiating its offense. Yeah. I mean, and when we think about Indiana, and you've talked about this a lot during the course of this year, Indiana was number one in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency last year in conference play. They're middle of the pack this year. Intense seems to have ratcheted up during this 1-1 set, and it was really noticeable from where I was sitting yesterday, just the degree to which they were digging in their heels and making things really difficult for the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, the same thing they did against Purdue as well. They just pushed the first catch out, pushed it towards half court. They made those guards uncomfortable, and they couldn't even feed the post to Cliff Amore at times. And ever since that Penn State game, this team has been connected on the defensive end because it made no sense for them to be this bad this year. When you think they got the same guys as last year, and you add in Hood Schifino, who's an NBA-level athlete, they should have been better. But ever since that Penn State game, they had a team meeting. TJD called some guys out. It started with him and his effort on the defensive end, and then it just bled to everybody else. A guy like Galloway has been big time. He took Fletcher Loyer out of the game. Think about last night, Paul Mulcahy is coming off of a second half where he just had 17 points, won the game for Rutgers in Madison Square Garden. He goes to Indiana, goes 1 for 4, 3 turnovers, and struggles down the stretch.
He did not score in the first half. And Trey Galloway, give him a ton of credit. Give Miller Kopp a lot of credit, too. Miller Kopp's been shooting at a really nice percentage this year. He just hasn't really. In that game last night, he got hot, and he kind of allowed himself to get on that roll and become a bigger factor offensively. And so when you factor that in with how good TJD was, and then just the supreme kind of individual moments, I want to watch. We showed it in the highlight, but this Jalen Hood Schifino play, this is, so here it is. So obviously my job, right? You're doing play-by-play. Your job is to describe it. Bardo and I didn't know what to say. I don't really know what I did say in hindsight, but But I mean, that's an incredible play. It's one of the
Yeah.
best plays. I do believe I said when he came back, it's one of the best plays I've ever seen.
No, I agree.
In person. I mean,
Yeah.
it was unreal.
He went deep into his bag for that one. You could tell he's practiced shots like that before.
Right.
I mean, Coach Weber was in last night. He said he used to practice that type of shot in the alley. And that is one of those shots. You just go up, you put some English on the ball, you practice getting fouled. Schifino is a guy that can win this team a lot of games. He can make big plays. He just knows how to put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
an unbelievable moment. I want to talk a little bit about Rutgers here. This is obviously a difficult situation to get yourselves into because I think Indiana made it pretty clear, like in their pregame shoot-around, Michael Woodson's message was, hey, we have got to follow up a good performance with another good performance. And so you're Rutgers, you're coming off that nice win at MSG. You're without Mawot Mag now for the year. So that not only is that tough on the team, just kind of in terms of the mindset, but he means a lot to them.
Yep.
And you kind of have to figure out who you are without him. He's an outstanding individual defender and now out for the year with a torn ACL. It just kind of felt like a little bit of heading into the Hornets' nest. But I thought Rutgers did a great job of withstanding the flurry early on from Indiana where it just seemed like TJD couldn't be stopped and making a game of this.
I mean, yeah, it felt like it was a 20-point game at times,
Yes.
and Rutgers will only be down 5 or 7 points. And then tying the game early in that second half, they just stuck with it. I don't think Rutgers expected Indiana to be this tough. I mean, you punk them in the first game. You hear Geo Baker earlier this season. No one's scared to go in Assembly Hall. No one's scared of those dudes. And they came out and just got punched in the mouth. And I don't think they expected that. But they stayed with it. They have older guys. But if you're Caleb McConnell, Paul Mulcahy, there's no way you can go on the road and play that way. Caleb McConnell goes 1 for 12 from the field, gets you 2 points. He's got to be better offensively or just not shoot the ball as much. And then Paul Mulcahy, after that second half performance, you got to follow that up and be aggressive. If we go back to last season when Rutgers got on a big roll, they went through a 5-game stretch. They beat 4 ranked teams. Paul Mulcahy was averaging 18 points and 8 assists. He's got to be that aggressive offensively, take the pressure off of Cam Spencer, let him be a shooter, a specialist in that area. Cliff can be an inside guy, but Paul's got to make it happen from the perimeter.
They were a combined 2 of 16, to your point.
Yeah.
So, road, and we've seen that they're 2 and 5 on the road now. They're so good at home. Ends a 6-game win streak for them against Indiana. There's an amazing stat that we threw out that our stats guru Mike Rudolphi gave me before the game that Indiana was the only team in the Big Ten that Rutgers had a winning record against all time. It's crazy. I mean, if you would have said, name the one team, certainly when they entered the league, if you would have said, hey, we're going to get to 2023, who's the team you think they'll have a winning record against? There's only going to be one.
Yeah.
It would have taken you a while to get to Indiana.
100%.
But even kind of knowing now, I mean, obviously we've been watching all those games, and I was shocked to see that. So Rutgers, maybe to Gio's point, has kind of had Indiana's number, but it felt like Indiana took it a little bit personally last night.
Yeah, they had some pride, and I've been that team before. I went 3 years straight, never beating Michigan State, rather if it was in Mackey or if it was out there in East Lansing. My senior year, those guys came to Mackey. I had the half of my life. I think I hit 5 or 6 threes in the first half.
I remember that,
We ended up winning that game. I made a free throw to win it. And you would have thought that was my Super Bowl of that year because I have never beat Michigan State. I never beat Tom Izzo. So it means a great deal to get over that hump. You never want to leave your school and have a team go undefeated against you because you're going to run into those guys. I run into Denzel Valentine or Brent Forbes, one of those dudes. Got one win, so we can say,
Trace Jackson Davis did talk a little bit after the game about the fact it was the first time that he had beaten Rutgers, and to his credit, he really complimented them and said it has a lot to do with them. They're a really good team, and they are a really good team. They've got a tough road here going to Indiana in that game last night. Next, they head to Illinois, so that is a really difficult one. Talk a little bit more about Trace Jackson Davis. I just think the performance was so fabulous last night, and it was a record-breaking performance for him as we check out today's big stat. We mentioned him going over 2,000 points for his career. Now has his head coach in his sights, and Mike Woodson. He's the only Hoosier ever to hit 2,000 points and 1,000 rebounds. The first player in Big Ten history to tally 2,000 points, 1,000 boards, 200 blocks, and 200 assists. And to say that he has hit another gear would really be an understatement. He was great in the first 13 games, Rapheal, but the last 8, he has just been ridiculous, averaging nearly 24 points per game, 14 boards, 3.5 blocks. Not so coincidentally, they have won 7 of those 8 games. It's just been another level, and it was fun talking to Mike Woodson about him yesterday before the game and asking him a little bit about what TJD has done lately. And honestly, he just kind of laughed and shook his head. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't take credit for it as a coach because you just know you're dealing with a guy who is just incredibly talented and maximizing it right now.
Yeah, you heard TJD in the press conference after the game. He knows about the numbers. Maybe he doesn't care too much about it right now, but he will later. But one thing he does care about, they haven't won anything. He wants to leave Assembly Hall. He wants to leave Indiana as a winner, not just a guy that put up great stats. And after he called his teammates out in that Northwestern game, they go to Penn State, they get smacked there, they have a team meeting. If you're going to be that guy that's going to call your guys out, going to call team meetings, you've got to be the one to start the change. If you're saying the right things, you got to do the right things. And he's been dominant on both ends of the floor. 6 assists in the game last night. He should have had 10. Some guys missed some layups, missed some open jump shots. He's just putting his imprints on every facet of the game. He's been a good leader in timeouts. You could clearly being a good leader off the floor because you beat the number 1 team in the nation. Those guys wanted to go out and party after that win, but you could tell they were grounded. They stayed together because they came out and really popped Rutgers early.
Well, that was the big thing Mike Woodson said. He said, I told them after the Purdue game, enjoy this for an hour. And then let's turn our attention to Rutgers because they're really, really good. And you think about last year, they beat Purdue, and then they got hammered by Michigan. This year, they beat North Carolina, which I know in hindsight, honestly, isn't that big a deal?
Right.
North Carolina is truly not very good. Indiana is clearly the better team. But at the time, it felt like that was a huge win. And then they turned around, and that was the game where they got blown out at Rutgers. So it is kind of this notion of can you focus back in? But there's also just the supreme gifts that he has. So I think all this stuff you were talking about there, agree 100%, right? Totally valid. But man, just to watch him on the court, it's crazy to think, and he's probably not going to be Big Ten Player of the Year. I mean, let's see what happens, right? But it's almost certainly going to be Zach Edey. He's almost certainly going to be National Player of the Year.
Right.
But man, in any other year, Rapheal, I mean, what he is doing, it boggles the mind how well he's been playing.
It's been unbelievable to watch. He's scoring the ball at such a high level. He's rebounding at a high level. He's getting the others involved. His second jump is so quick. He misses a shot, he's going to go up there and go dunk it. And I love that he's trying to dunk everything. He's just trying to take the heart of the opponent. Anytime he's around the rim, he's dunking the basketball. I love the toughness he's playing with. He's raised his level there. And if you're not matching his level of intensity, his level of toughness, it's going to make you look silly at this point. This is the TJD everyone expected to get early in the year. It just took getting punched in the mouth a few times. Xavier Johnson went down, Race Thompson went down, and then he understood he had to be that guy. I think it was that second half of that Wisconsin game. That first half was really tight. Second half, he goes 7 for 7 from the field, seals that game, and he's just been unbelievable since. He's almost unguardable. You've got to send 2, maybe 3 defenders, and now he's being a willing passer, passing out of double teams, shooting the ball exactly where it needs to go. It's crazy. I think with the way he's playing, Hood Schifino closes games like against Purdue. There's no telling what this team could do.
No doubt. And they're a better three-point shooting team than they were a year ago. I'll leave you with this one. He is on pace to be the first Division I player to average at least 19 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 3 assists.
That's crazy.
Since Tim Duncan.
That's unbelievable.
1996-97. That is some pretty good company to be in for TJD. Michigan State winning for just the 3rd time in its last 8 games last night. Jumped out to a 15-0 lead on Maryland. The Terps, though, came all the way back to take the lead in the second half. Michigan State was down 4 with just over 9 minutes to go before going on an 8-0 run to take the lead for good. Joey Hauser leading all scorers with 20. MSU went on to win it by 5. This was a weird game, Rapheal. It was a game Michigan State really needed. They have been struggling they came out of the gate, a team that hasn't necessarily started well in a lot of games recently, and they were on fire. Again, you're winning 15-0. And then Maryland actually came all the way back, as I said, and were leading in this game. But what did you see from Michigan State early on that maybe was a little bit different than we've seen here in recent weeks?
They came out with a sense of urgency. They came out and played like they had to win that game, like it was the most important game on their schedule. And you saw that first 4 or 5 minutes, the results, the 15-0 start. Joey Hauser was aggressive. I love when Joey Hauser shoots the basketball. Rather if it goes in or if it doesn't, when he's open, it's got to go. It's got to be up. He's got to shoot the ball. He's got to call for it in post when he has smaller defenders. He was good in that first half. A.J. Hogarth had a good floor game. He only had 8 points, but had 10 rebounds, 8 assists. He did his job there. And Tyson Walker, before he got in some foul trouble in that first half, he had got going. They were clicking on both ends of the floor. They took Jameer Young out of the game early. He didn't get going for a while. But when Tyson Walker got those fouls, Maryland stuck with it. Because I thought they were going to quit. I mean, you saw what they did at Michigan. Michigan punched them in the mouth, and they laid down and they took it. Got ran out of the gym. But they had some grit about themselves, some fight, some toughness, and they stuck with it and ended up coming back.
I want to dive into a little bit of what you were talking about. Tyson Walker was a huge difference in this game. He was plus 15 in the 27 minutes he was on the court. As you mentioned, he had the foul trouble in the first half, and that was when it started to go south, it felt like, a little bit for Michigan State. And then A.J. Hogarth, again, some big moments down the stretch, like hitting that front end of that one-on-one, hitting both of those free throws, tracking down the rebound at the end of the game in the final minute. Like moments like that, those are winning plays, and their guards made winning plays.
I mean, and just the pass to Joey Hauser in the corner for the three. I mean, Hogarth caught that ball top of the key. He could have shot it. He could have went for his, one dribble, kicked it to the corner. Joey Hauser makes a big shot. And that's what you need from your veteran guards. And you talk about Tyson Walker, guys don't give him enough respect. They don't give him enough credit. He is Michigan State's go-to guy. When he's on, they're playing better. You see what they did against Purdue. He's the guy that's going to make plays for them offensively. So when he's not on the court, they get a little stagnant. But when he's aggressive, you have to check him, give him that type of attention. It allows Joey Hauser to spray in some shots. Jay Nakins can make a couple baskets. And then those guys off the bench, they got to come in and just keep giving good energy on the defensive end. And when you come off the bench, when you're an energy guy, play through your defense, not your offense, and that's what happened last night.
Let's focus on Maryland here, and this has been a different team at home versus on the road. It's really hard to win when you shoot 3 of 22 from three-point range, and unfortunately for them, there's been a little bit of a theme. They're under 30% from three in their road games this year. What do you see from them as to why they're so different?
I mean, they've got to make shots. I mean, because if you tell me before the game that Maryland's going to go to Michigan State, they'd be plus 16 in the paint, they only have 8 turnovers, and they win the rebound war, I would tell you Maryland wins by 10. But you got to be able to. Maryland only makes 3. I think that's the difference in the game. They've got to have. They don't have a guy that a Fletcher Lawyer or a Cam Spencer, Andrew Funk run off a couple screens and can spray a 3. I think that's the difference. Their defense can really, really help them stay in the games, but at the end of the day, you're going to have someone to make some shots when that ball's not going in.
The other thing that really strikes me with them, Julian Reese is one of the most improved players in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a real force now on the low blocks. He's got a lot of different moves. He's really good. The issue is he can't stay on the floor, Rapheal. I mean, the foul trouble is a huge problem for him, and it reared its ugly head again last night. If they can just figure out a way to kind of protect him, they're a different team.
I mean, because you see at Purdue in that second half, Julian Reese in the game had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and that's against Zach Edey, the National Player of the Year. He plays against Trey Sexton-Davis, plays that matchup tough. They win that game. But he just picks up some silly fouls at times, even the dead ball technical last night. It just was unneeded. He's got to have a little bit of sense of maturity about himself and have some, not the fake toughness. Sometimes the fake toughness can really hurt you. You pick up a tech you don't need from just shoving an elbow. You've got to go in there and be physical on a rebound. That's how you get your get back in the Big Ten. That ball goes up, that's when you hit somebody. You won't get a foul in that point, but he's got to figure out a way, watch on film, not reach in there on ball screens, play with his hands up, don't use his body as much, because when he's on the floor, it gives those guys a bunch of confidence that they can throw the ball into somebody and then the guards don't have to make a play every time.
This still feels like a clear-cut NCAA tournament team. You'd like to see them win a couple more on the road. Just if for no other reason than I think the committee looks at that to kind of see, maybe that helps you with a seed line or two. But, man, they're just so tough at home. And it's a really nice job that Kevin Willard has done, convincing some of the guys to come back.
Yep.
Dante Scott and Hakeem Hart and that crew, obviously Julian Reese as well, but also plugging in and obviously found an incredible keeper at the point guard spot.
Yeah, I love what Coach Willard told those guys before the season. I keep going back to it. You sit down Julian Reese, Hakeem Hart, Dante Scott, and you let them know, I'm not going in the transfer portal to recruit over you. I'm not trying to replace you. I'm just going to add a piece that helps the team. And you go out and get exactly what they needed, a Jameer Young who can get buckets, who can score the ball, a bona fide bucket getter. But he'll share the basketball. Jameer Young is a good teammate. He'll play on both ends of the floor. He'll get 6 rebounds a game at 5'10". He'll do those little things, and it matches perfectly with the mindsets and the relationships on that team already.
Yeah, they're a fun team to watch. They're really fun to watch at home, particularly if you're a Terps fan. They head home for 2 in a row next. They got Penn State and Purdue.
Big ones.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
When the Boilermakers journey into Xfinity Center again, they have yet to lose a conference home game. They did get pounded by UCLA there, but other than that, they have been perfect at home this year. Dive into these games, Rapheal, and let's start with Game 2, Penn State and Wisconsin. Such a significant game for both of these teams. Penn State is among Mike DeCourcy's first 4 out. Wisconsin is in the next group of 4, the next 4 out. So you're talking about 2 teams that are out of the NCAA tournament at this moment, according to Mike, but among the first group of 8 that could get in. So it is a huge game for both of these teams. Let's start here with Penn State. They've lost 2 straight here coming in. They're trying to bounce back from the loss to Nebraska. What are you watching here for the Nittany Lions?
They went out to Nebraska, and they took a childish approach. They just thought they were going to stroll into Lincoln and just beat those guys. Comes out, and they try and fight you every single game. So I want to see how they respond to that one. Coach Shrewsbury, he's had them in some spirited practices since that Nebraska game. So how do those leaders, how do they respond? And who is Penn State when the ball doesn't go in? When they're not making threes, they go through 6-7 minutes of not making shots. Who are they? And that's what we're going to have to find out.
Well, that's going to have to be on the defensive end, right? I mean, because there's literally no team in the nation that gets a higher percentage of its points from threes in Penn State. And it feels to me like that's not going to change. I mean, they may end up second or third, but I'm just saying, like, they're not all of a sudden going to be a team that just pounds it into the low post. And that is the challenge of being 3-point dependent, is you do have those games where they just don't fall.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it's not necessarily even about throwing the ball to Kebajai on the block or giving the ball to Dorsey down low. Seth Lundy's 6'7", 6'8", 230 pounds. He can drive the ball against anybody in the Big Ten. Cam Winter has scored over 1,700 points in his career. He can get into the lane and make plays. Andrew Funk can play off of a pump fake. Jalen Pickett can't be the only guy trying to make plays in the lane for his teammates and for himself. Those guys have to be a little tougher and drive that basketball. And maybe it's not for themselves. Maybe they make a kick out to an open 3-point shooter. But even the Miles Dredd is 6'6", 240, 250 pounds. He's got to be able to get by a defender and get to the basket. It's not about just throwing the ball inside, but somebody's got to take it upon themselves to drive the ball, get by a defender, put pressure on that second line defense, and then you'll have teams, it'll soften a little bit, and those threes will start to fall.
Pretty big game for them. They haven't made the tournament since 2011. This would be a quad 3 loss, which is kind of hard to believe with Wisconsin, but that's where they are right now. They're 77 in the net. Maybe that changes if the Badgers catch fire. For them, Wisconsin has a lot of ground to make up as well. Just feels like offensively they are in a little bit of a funk. Just kind of can't figure it out. They don't really have an easy way to get baskets. They're heavily reliant as well on the 3. They don't shoot as many as Penn State, but they're a much better 3-point shooting team than they are.
Response, because you say that they should be better. They should have an inside post presence every single game. Tyler Wall is a preseason all-conference guy, and I know he may not be 100% right now, but if you're out there, you're out there. You can play hurt, you can't play injured. And once you decide to lace them up, you got to go out there and produce. In their last game, Tyler Wall goes 2 for 5, only gets you 5 points. Steven Crowd goes 2 for 5, only gets you 5 points. When Wisconsin is winning games, Those two guys are playing well. Connor Essegian is their freshman. He was their spark plug off the bench to start this year. Now he's kind of morphed into their go-to guy. Tyler Wall, Steven Crowd, Chucky Hepburn, that has to be the three-headed monster and allow guys like Klesmit, Essegian to play off of them. They got to be more aggressive.
They are among the bottom 40 teams in the country in two-point percentage.
That's crazy.
And you think about, and again, look, you're right. I mean, Tyler Wall is not the same player that he was before he got injured, and I do think that's a huge part of it, but it just feels like there's kind of everything on offense. And give Essegian credit. I mean, he almost single-handedly won Northwestern game with his ability to hit the three. There just wasn't a whole lot else going on there. But, losers of 7 of 9 now. This is a series they have absolutely owned. They've only lost one of the last 18 games against Penn State. If you're going to make any kind of a run here from Wisconsin's point of view, this is one you got to win.
Yeah, you got to go on the road, strap your boots up, and win this game and find a way. And you got to find a way to get the ball to the basket and make it easy on yourselves. You talk about that Northwestern game. That's a game where we normally would say Wisconsin's going to win it. It's close down the stretch. Wisconsin is a team that execute plays down the stretch. They get the ball where it needs to go. But the last couple minutes of the game, Wisconsin finishes 1 for 5 from the field. Chucky Hepburn goes 1 for 4 from the field to finish out, and he's looking for fouls to win the game. And that's just not Wisconsin-style execution. The ball starts to stick. No one's moving it. Wisconsin's a team, they move it. They run that swing offense. They get some back cuts going. No continuous to the offense.
Give Northwestern's credit, some defensive credit. They were really good down the stretch. But again, you're looking at a Wisconsin team that's made 22 of the last 23 NCAA tourneys. They need a win tonight. Michigan and Nebraska. Let's just call it like it is here for Michigan. They are in 0 brackets right now. Okay, like the bracket matrix says, I think it's 115 brackets when I checked this morning. They're in 0.
Dang.
Okay, so they are not an NCAA tournament team right now. They're not close to an NCAA tournament team right now. However, they have opportunities here, Rapheal. They have 4 quad 1 games left. You just can't drop a game like this. All due respect to Nebraska, who we were talking about, just beat Penn State. Offensively, I think they've hit a little bit different gear here. But this is a game you have to win if you're Michigan.
You got to come out and play with a sense of urgency, and you have to respect Nebraska. Penn State didn't respect Nebraska, and one player specifically they didn't respect was Keisei Tominaga, Logo K. He gave those boys a 30-piece chicken nugget, and they just looked at him and just expected him not to be able to play. He was balling. So this Michigan team, they've got to come out. Kobe Buffkin, he's been playing better the last 2 games, flirting with triple-doubles. He's going to have his hands full with Keisei, because Keisei, that game he played against Penn State, that was probably the best I've seen somebody move without the basketball. So he was getting inside the lane, back cuts. Derek Walker was finding them. Derek Walker's a big man, has 7 assists. So Hunter Dickinson's going to have to guard for 40 minutes. This is a game where Hunter Dickinson's going to have to put his team in his backpack, put him on his back, and go out there and dominate. This can't be a game where you see Hunter Dickinson maybe have 17, 18 points, but only 3 or 4 rebounds. He's going to have one of those dominant performances, double-digit field goals, get to the free throw line 9, 10 times, and really get those rebounds as well.
That's a big thing. I want to go back to what you were saying about Tominaga. I think the reputation that he had when he came in was as a shooter. He played junior college for Billy Gillespie. The bomber, right? I mean, he hit nearly percent from 3, and so that was the thought of kind of what you were getting. But man, he is crafty. He can get to the basket. He's shooting nearly 60% from 2-point range this year. So he's really showing he is a complete offensive player, and he is someone that you have to account for. They're a different offensive team. I'm not in any way suggesting they would love to have Juwan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel right now. The complexion of this team has changed because they don't have those guys, and so they kind of have to be a little more offensive focused. They had a great identity that they were starting to form with those guys with how tough they are on the defensive end. But they've become a little harder to guard, I think, here in these last few weeks.
Yeah, Coach Hoiberg has made some adjustments. They're not as long or as physical as they used to be with those 2 guys in the lineup defensively, but now you can space the floor a little better. Now Lawrence is getting more minutes. He made a big shot down the stretch against Penn State. So you have more driving lanes for Grisul and those guys to get in the paint and make some plays. But Keisei Tominaga, he has just been incredible. Being able to move without the basketball, playing in bright lights, one in the big moments. This is a guy who played in the Olympics for his country. He's representing his entire country right now. Going to Michigan, it won't scare him. It won't throw him off. And you finally start to see why before he got to Nebraska, they were calling him the Japanese Steph Curry, because he can move so well. He never stops moving. And if you're a defender, you hate guarding guys like Keisei Tominaga.
Would you sit still?
Exactly, because the play sometimes is not even for him. But he's moving, he's calling screens, he's playing the game the right way with energy. His teammates love to play with him. And guys have to start to respect him, and they're going to have their hands full if you're Michigan.
Last 5 games, nearly 48% from the field. The challenge for them, it feels like, is getting Derek Walker going a little bit. He's been in a tough period. What do you think of the matchup between Walker and Hunter Dickinson?
Big time matchup. Hunter Dickinson, All-American big man. He has to put the team on his back and really take a Trace Jackson Davis level approach to this one. You see what TJD has done over the last 8 games, and they won 7 of those. So I think Hunter Dickinson has that opportunity right here in front of him to really go on a run right now, starting with Nebraska, really try and dominate this matchup. But Derek Walker, he is no slouch. He's one of the toughest people in the Big Ten to guard, and he's one of the tougher guys to score on. But he's got to find a way to stay out of foul trouble. Yeah. He's been picking up some early fouls. He's been getting 2 in the first half, and that's really hurt him.
They need him on the court to win in Ann Arbor, which is something that Nebraska has never done in the history of the program. See if they can do it tonight here on the network. Big night in Bloomington last night. Indiana's win over Rutgers brought out the luminaries, including 2 of the stars of the second-ranked IU women's team, Mackenzie Holmes and Sydney Parrish among those in attendance. Simon Scott Assembly Hall will be rocking tomorrow night as well as the Hoosiers host number 5 Iowa in a massive showdown here on the Big Ten Network. Mackenzie Holmes is joining us now. She is today's big interview. And Mackenzie, the eyes of the college basketball world are going to be on you tomorrow. What is the anticipation like for a game of this magnitude?
It's super exciting, a top 5 matchup, two really good teams going head to head. We haven't played each other yet this year, so I know it's a game that we've been really looking forward to, and I'm sure Iowa has as well.
You know, you came to a program that was starting to elevate under Terry Morin and made an NCAA tourney trip. It was obvious there was kind of an upward trajectory, but you guys have taken it to another level with an Elite 8 trip, a Sweet 16 trip. It just feels like this thing, since you committed and since some of the rest of this group came on board, has really elevated. What's it been like to be a part of this ride, to take a program to heights that it hasn't seen before?
It's honestly been surreal. I don't think if I've ever really had time to reflect on it and think about it. Just thinking about where the program was before I got here versus where it is now is just a testament to Coach Morin and her staff, and how they go about their business, how they recruit. The culture that they've built here is something that's really special.
You talk about how they recruit. They certainly know no borders in their recruiting. You are from Maine, which is not a typical spot, I would say, to find a Big Ten basketball player. Tell us about your process of going from Maine to Indiana.
Yeah, I never really anticipated leaving New England at the beginning of my recruiting process. Being from Maine, I wanted my family to be able to come watch me play, and then Indiana started showing interest the end of my sophomore year, and then I felt like I had to go visit, just knowing how special of a school Indiana was and how much they loved and cared about basketball. So I visited, and then I fell in love with it. The people, the campus, all of it. So I went to Hoosier Hysteria 2018, I think it was, and it was unbelievable, a great experience. So they sold me on the first trip.
It had to be. You were talking about using the term surreal earlier. It had to be a little surreal for you. I mean, take us back to, you're in 8th grade, you try out for the AAU team, and you couldn't even make it through the first practice. Take us through that moment and kind of how your life changed from that.
Yeah, I think it just sparked, something in me that I didn't really know that I had before. It sparked a work ethic that that I kind of have just followed the rest of my life since that point. I think when my AAU coach, my brand new AAU coach, told me I wasn't cut out for the program, I think that, you know, it kind of ignited a fire in me a little bit, and you know, I don't like being told I can't do something. So from that point on, I just kept working every day, and ended up having some success following along with that.
I would say so. He clearly knew the right buttons to push there. Tell us about your hometown of Gorham, Maine. It seems like I know IU is a different level in terms of passion for basketball, but as I was getting ready for this interview, it's pretty amazing to me to see what a big deal high school basketball is in Gorham.
Yeah, and high school basketball in Maine in general is a big deal. We actually have a week in February, which I didn't know that wasn't a thing for everyone else, but it's a break we get in February, and it's a week long, and it's when all the high school basketball tournament games happen. So that whole week you're just living in the gym watching games. You know, if you make the tournament, you get a pass, so you get into games for free. So it's a big deal, and my high school career, you know, I went to 3 state championships, won 2. So we had a big following in my hometown for basketball. We always would have great crowds at our girls' games. So just having that similar when I got to college, which Indiana is obviously on a way bigger scale, especially now. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. The one part of your career, obviously, that wasn't a whole lot of fun was getting injured last year. You went through some serious adversity with that knee injury. You missed 8 games. What did you learn from that experience?
That I can get through anything. You know, having surgery and then coming back 4 weeks later. You know, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do from a mental toughness perspective, from a rehab perspective, from, you know, getting myself back in shape, game shape. You know, basketball shape's different than any other type of shape you could get. You couldn't run for that being. So, you know, if you have the right people behind you, then you can get through anything. And luckily I did. You know, I had a great support staff, athletic training staff, teammates that all believed in me through that process, and they never lost faith that I was going to get back out on the court. And thankfully I was able to at the end of February.
Now, Grace Berger went through something similar this year. In what ways were you able to kind of help her through that? Yeah,
just, you know, telling her, take it day by day. Some days are going to be better than others. You know, rehab is not linear. You're going to have really good days and you're going to have really bad days. So, and I think, you know, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. That was all Grace. She worked her butt off to get back out on the court. She was always doing something, whether she was cheering us on or doing ball handling on the sideline, on the Versa, lifting extra. She took the rehab very seriously every day, and I think that's why she was able to get back out on the court as quickly as she did and look so good.
I saw that you and Grace have been teaming up with a foundation called Indiana Wish. Tell me a little bit about what that group does and what the two of you have done with it.
Yeah, Indiana Wish, it grants wishes to kids with illnesses in Indiana. So whether it's, you know, going to a certain sporting event or, you know, getting an opportunity to do different things, it grants these Wish kids that opportunity. So it's been really special to be able to work with them. Grace and I, we went to one event this fall. Oh my gosh, I think it was Polo, the horse one. What is that called?
Yeah, Polo.
Yeah. It was called Chuckers for Children, and Polo. Yeah. So that was my first time ever going to a polo event. So that was interesting. But I got to meet some of the Wish kids and their families. So it was a lot of fun.
I know high school polo isn't big in Maine. It's not big in many places. Maine would not be exclusive to that group. Hey, you've already announced you're coming back for next year, which I know Hoosier fans are fired up about. What went into that decision?
I think, you know, I love being a Hoosier, and I think, you know, getting injured last year definitely solidified that for me. You know, having missed 8 games and then COVID the year before that, missing games then too. I think just getting the opportunity to have, you know, a couple normal years is really important, especially at such a special place like Indiana.
Well, you're having a fabulous year this year. Your numbers are crazy. You're in the top 10 in the nation in scoring. You lead the nation in points per game in the paint. Yet I'm just going to put this out there. I think in any other year, or maybe, other than these last couple of years, you'd be the clear-cut Big Ten Player of the Year. But we know what Caitlin Clark is doing in Iowa City. To what degree does that motivate you, this notion of personal accolades?
Yeah, I'm not really too interested in personal accolades. When you look at teams who win Big Ten championships, you look at those teams as a whole. You don't look at those individual players and the points that they had. So I just use my drive for wanting to win to drive, how I perform. But obviously, Caitlin's a phenomenal player. She's, one of the best, if not the best player in college basketball right now. So to even have my name, on the same list as her is really special to me.
Well, this is going to be a heck of a matchup. Obviously, Caitlin is a big part of what makes Iowa go, but Monica Czinano in the post is going to be someone you square off with. Give us a few things that we should be watching tomorrow that have kind of stood out to you as you started to scout Iowa.
Yeah, they're a dangerous team beyond the arc. They have multiple players that can hit threes, and obviously they have a facilitator like Caitlin Clark, as well as that inside presence in Monica Czinano. So they run, they get out in transition, they push the ball, and they score a lot of points. So, just trying to slow them down the best we can and, try to control the pace, get good looks. Have them take tough shots, but that's gonna be difficult to do because they're a really good team.
You are as well. This is going to be a great game. The first matchup of top 5 Big Ten teams going head-to-head in 30 years. Should be phenomenal tomorrow. Enjoy it, Mackenzie. Really a pleasure to get to know you a bit. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
We had a great one-on-one matchup, Zach Edey against Trace Jackson-Davis on Saturday, and it lived up to the hype. I'm looking at the numbers. 58 points, 25 rebounds, 8 blocks between them. They missed a grand total of 14 shots, making 24. They were really, really good. Now, I know it got you thinking, Rapheal, about some other one-on-one matchups you're excited to see. Let's break a few of these down, including one that happens tomorrow night.
Yeah, you got Chase Audige, who could be Defensive Player of the Year in this league. Definitely a lock for. You got Bryce Sensabaugh, better scores, Big Ten, probably the best naturally skilled freshman in the league. That's going to be a big-time matchup. One, because Ohio State, they've got to fix some things. They've got to try and win some games. Coach Holtman, they haven't given up on the season yet. So if they could win this one against a good Northwestern team, maybe it could trickle into some more wins. So Sensabaugh is going to have to be aggressive. And then for Chase Audige, again, another game. This is their biggest game of the year. They've got to be able to go out there and take a victory. They got punched in the face in their first matchup.
It's difficult according to Bart Torvik, and you start looking at the games that they could win conceivably, and this feels like one that certainly have a chance in, given how Ohio State's been playing. Northwestern been pretty good on the road, but a really important one for them. So that is the first one. Then I know you got your eye on one this weekend as well.
Yeah, you got Jalen Pickett, you got Jameer Young, two of the best point guards within the Big Ten. I'm jumping ahead of myself. No, two of the best point guards within the Big Ten. They're going to be going at it. Jalen Pickett, he's going to see Jameer Young, and he's going to play booty ball. He's going to try and get Mouse in the house and put him into the post. And then for Jameer Young, he's been absolutely balling the last 8 games. 21 points a game, 6 rebounds at his height. Very impressive. He likes to use that ball screen and get to his left hand. Both of those guys are underrated defenders. So that's going to be a big-time matchup. Both of those teams need wins. Penn State, they still got to make up for that Nebraska loss. So you got to get this one against Wisconsin, and then you got to go play in a tough environment at Maryland.
What about when Indiana goes to Iowa, last day of the month, the TJD against Chris Murray match?
Yeah, I jumped ahead of myself trying to get to this one early because this one will be worth popping popcorn. This is going to be a big-time game. You got 2 All-Americans, 2 first-round draft picks, and they should guard each other, especially in this one, because you think about TJD and the way he's been playing as of late. He's morphed into maybe a point forward, more of a power forward role where he'll get a rebound and he'll push the break now. So I don't know if they will go with Rabracha on him or put Rabracha on Race Thompson. But TJD, he's switching 1 through 4 now. He's guarding at a higher level. Chris Murray's one of the coolest cats in the league. You can't speed him up. That's going to be one I'm circling on the calendar.
Do you have any interest in the game February 25th at Mackey? Does that one interest you at all?
I haven't texted Coach Painter yet, but I'm telling you right now, Coach, I need tickets. The best in the house. I cannot wait for February 25th. You got to get those guys back.
It is never too early to start groveling, right? And if you can grovel in a public forum, very few people have the opportunity to grovel in a public forum.
Yes,
like
sir.
This. So you have taken advantage of it. Yeah, that'll be great when Indiana and Purdue meet for round 2. Again, it's coming up February 25th. We'll see you for the tip-off show later tonight.